Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel here on John's Briefs. Today back again with Tim Forshee from Forshee Law. Had a recent educational beatdown on the channel out of Stockton, California. A couple of Sikh clerks at a 7-Eleven, dude just like stealing stuff, like the most brazen thief I've ever seen. Well, welcome to California law. And they beat the brakes off that guy.
If you don't know much about the Sikh religion, you should learn about it.
Yeah,
it's
a little bit.
Cool. That's a pretty cool religion. Yeah,
but listen, I mean, they beat that guy like a rented donkey. And for a little while, it looked like the district attorney might charge the clerks. And I want to talk to the attorney about it. Firearms Legal Protection is who I trust to help me after a use of force incident. If you're a Firearms Legal Protection member, I will also be on your team as a consulting expert, and you can attend our monthly active self-protection training seminars for free. Check out all they offer to their members at the link below. It was an interesting one, Tim, because, you know, I gotta be honest. I mean, the first time I watched it, I giggled my butt off. Is that okay for me to say?
I think I giggled the second time I watched it. So let's be honest here. So, and as I watch this thing, and again, it's human tragedy. You hate to laugh at human tragedy. Sometimes it's a knee-jerk reaction. You can't help it. But the first thing that went through my mind is, how many shop owners in Stockton, California have a 9-foot piece of bamboo club in their shop?
It was like a shovel handle, right? Like
was it? I thought it had a sound like it was hollow. I just kept thinking, this guy's from Singapore, man. He is administering a caning to this dude. It was just like...
I think that was a dude's shins that were making that noise.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
But it was just like...
Could you imagine how much that hurt?
I mean, you're right. Educational beatdown, right?
Oh.
Yeah, that was... And then the other thing that struck me about it was the narration from the guy that was recording the video. This guy was like, who do you think you are, dude? Like you're the voice of God coming into this convenience store telling people what to do and what not to do.
And that guy, quite frankly, was wrong about me. There's nothing you can do. Wrong. So let's talk about that. He says, well, there's nothing you can do about them stealing. That's completely false. You have every right to stop somebody from stealing your property. Now, of course, they're clerks at the store. They're not necessarily owners of the store. So you're like, well, it's not really your property. You're an agent, though, and you have the right to stop somebody from stealing.
You're not going to have a job long if that goes unchecked, and we're not going to have a society long if it goes unchecked. But the flip side of that is, yes, you do have a right to intervene as long as it's appropriate. Flip side of that is, we had a case here, 6 months ago in Phoenix, where a guy at a dollar store was shoplifting, and a clerk went over and tried to stop him and got stabbed to death.
And got stabbed.
So... I mean, is it worth your life to save those little cigarello cigars that guy's stealing?
Now listen, if you go look at the news stories on this, couple things. He had come in there before and stolen. He had threatened that he had a gun. He had said he had a gun and that he would shoot them if they got in his way.
Well, and as you said, it looked like he did have a knife.
So there was it.
Right.
And I think that nobody else that I saw talk about this talked about the fact that he, at some point, he's jawing at him, pulls something out of his pocket that looked an awful lot to me like a knife.
And if it wasn't a knife, it was a weapon he was going to use like a knife, whatever it was. Could have been a piece of strapping material, but he was going to use it as a knife, clearly.
And so then, honestly, at that moment, if he pulls that knife and then puts it back in his pocket and one of them pulls a gun and shoots that guy, I got no problem with it. I really don't. I think that's justifiable conduct. California, you know, a lot of people say, well, California, you can't do that. Actually, their self-defense laws are pretty good. Their justified use of force laws are good. It's their gun laws that suck. And so that's not a problem. But of course, as we move forward, no problem with the clerk grabbing a hold of him and saying, you can't steal my stuff. And I don't even have a problem with the guy grabbing the shovel handle or whatever it is to go, hey man, get away from me and get away from my stuff because I'm smaller than you. You guys clearly addled on drugs and those things. They get him down on the ground though, and they, I get it. I'll give him the first, I don't know, 10 whacks.
To me, we know from law enforcement what a lot of times they call this is a compliance strike, right? And it's not, like I said, the first few whacks, hey dude, we're not letting you go.
Right.
If you keep fighting, I'm going to keep hitting you, so stop fighting. A compliance kind of concept.
Pain compliance.
But you're right. At some point, it became punishment school, right?
Yeah.
And like we both said, there's that Schadenfreude part of our body that's going, yeah, good, get him one for me too. But yeah, that doesn't play well a lot of times, especially if it's being videotaped, which, as we know, this one was. So.
All right, so now you are the county district attorney in this area. Now, his former district attorney here, right?
Well, I was a state's attorney in Illinois, yes.
All right, so a state's attorney. So as a state's attorney, you look at this footage, and the district attorney for a while there now. It depends on who you look at on the news stories, because it says, well, the police are investigating, and then a couple of the news stories said they're considering charges against the clerks. The district attorney then came back and said, nah, we weren't looking at them for charges, but when that news story comes out, you're going to sweat that a few nights. If you're the district attorney, you're the state's attorney, are you thinking about charges on these guys?
So is this in a perfect world where I'm not swayed by political opinion? I'm doing my job?
In a perfect world, you're doing your job.
So the phone calls from different factions in the city aren't affecting me here. It's what I think should happen.
Yes.
Okay. I think probably what I would do, now this is, again, I'm older, so I'm looking at it as a fatherly type of a thing. I would probably call them in and make them scared. I would bring them in and make them hire a lawyer and scare the hell out of them. I'm going to charge them with something serious. And I think once I looked in their eyes and I realized that the lesson was learned, I think I probably would not have charged.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that this wasn't handled the way maybe it should have been handled. Although, you know, again, did they cause it? Were they shoplifting in their own store?
No.
I mean, they're, you know.
Well, at some point they're punishing him for the previous stealing.
Exactly. Right.
Which I get it.
We get it.
The cops won't do it.
Right.
And so sometimes you gotta, you know, the only thing that's gonna teach someone is some lumps on their noggin. And listen, I've said this, every man at one point in his life needs his ass kicked.
That's true.
I mean,
that's so true.
It's not wrong,
You need
right?
to know what it's like.
You need to know, well, and again, sometimes you step out of line far
That's
enough,
right.
you need your ass kicked.
It corrects your course.
To understand, you can't do this. It's happened to me.
Sure.
I mean, you know,
Happened
had
to me,
that. I
absolutely.
worked construction for 6 years when I was a teenager,
Yeah.
and I caught some lumps for being stupid. Okay, happens to all of us, right? And so sometimes we call it an educational beatdown for a reason.
Yeah.
Because it teaches. You've broken the rules here. Don't break them
But
again.
then again, we always have to look back at, you know, the Charles Bronson Death Wish movies. You know, no matter how much the person deserves it,
Yeah.
you know, you can't take the law into your own hands. It's just not, it's not allowed. And even if we kind of wish it was, which is why these vengeance movies, you know, I'm probably going to go see the new Equalizer movie this weekend. I love Denzel, right?
Who doesn't love Denzel?
But at the same time, you go, yeah, but that's kind of why we do it in Hollywood. It allows us to vent our spleen a little bit. In real life, it's a whole different situation.
And I think I applaud that the DA ends up saying,
Yeah.
no, there's no charges filed.
I
here."
agree.
Correct.
In fact, I was astonished when you mentioned that at the end of the video, because I was like, well, these guys are going down. I mean, the political aspects of this video are what they are, and these guys are going to go down. That's all there is to it.
Well,
I
and
was
that's-
astonished and pleased when I saw that didn't happen.
And you know, I think, let's be real, in a real world, than the real world in which we live, I think the fact that the shopkeepers are ethnic minorities, they're Punjabi, and religious minorities, Sikh, right? You can tell that by their headdress and those
Right.
things, right? That's a religious aspect for them. And again, I'm a Christian. I have great love for Sikh people. I think that they're
Yeah.
some of the kindest, best people that I've ever met. And I think that played in their favor because again, if it's me, an old fat white guy,
Beating a homeless black gentleman.
beating a
with
homeless black guy with a
stick.
stick,
That going to play different?
are those calls going to show up to the
And it's
district attorney's office?
embarrassing and awful that we have to have that part of the conversation. But I think you have to have that part of the conversation.
It's the reality of things because of the narrative that it plays in power dynamics in America.
That's right.
And so to ignore that is stupid as a self-defender, right? And listen, I hope this moron learned his lesson.
Yeah.
I hope he doesn't go back and decide he can steal it. And certainly probably ain't going back to that 7-Eleven.
Yeah, I was going to say, one thing I guarantee is that those Sikhs won't see this guy again.
Yeah.
I would bet pretty good money on that.
I also hope that whoever's the shopkeeper there and those clerks start carrying firearms.
Yeah.
And the reason is because if that dude is dumb enough to not learn his educational lesson, comes back with that knife, he could want to punish you
Or I was going to say,
for making him famous.
He comes back to get his even skis,
Yeah.
and he's got a shotgun. So
yeah. So
a bamboo
and
stick's not going to help a whole lot
I
against that.
kind of doubt he's got money for that, but it's real easy to find a shiv.
Or it's also easy to steal one.
Easy to steal one out of a car or something like that, you know. So listen, and you can carry a gun in California, you know. It's in post-Bruin world, no good cause required. It takes a while to get a license, but it's a shall issue world now. So listen, I think big lesson for us: learn when to say when.
Yeah.
Just because
exactly.
somebody deserves a beating doesn't mean you can give it to them.
It ain't yours to give. That's right.
And therefore, I don't want you sweating that. I don't want you hiring the attorney for $500 an hour to sit in the DA's office and the DA reads you the riot act and your attorney to tell you, listen, he is going to read you the riot act here and you are going to take it and you are going to be contrite.
With your hat in your hand.
And you are going to sit there with your hat in your hand. Well, I did nothing wrong. Well, if you want to go to court and prove it and pay me another $25,000.
Because if I am the prosecutor and I think that you haven't learned the lesson and you don't have regret, then now my job is to teach you that lesson. And
Yeah.
I got one way to teach it.
And use the process as punishment.
That's right.
And so again, rather than that, learn when enough is enough. Use defensive force to protect, not to punish, even though you want to, even though he's earned it. Be smart.
Spare the rod, spoil the shoplifter.
Spoil the shoplifter, but sometimes you got to just spoil him.
That's
Tim,
right.
thanks for the discussion.
As always, buddy, thanks.